Over my years producing videos, I've done a lot of work testing color grades, and while some of my videos turn out really cool, some don't. So I'm going to be making this video series to explain to you guys how I go through and grade my videos. And today I want to talk about the first step and arguably the most important step, and that is using Lumetri colors to nail exposure in post-production. So now that we are in Adobe Premiere, I'm going to be editing that intro shot that you just saw. The first step to grading footage, in my opinion, needs to be exposure. I'm shooting this video in Sony Picture Profile 6, video to come soon as to why I think that is the best Sony Picture Profile. But for now, you can see that this is a little bit of a flat image and that there's pretty good depth to the overall image. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to be looking at the black values of this image. As you can see, it's pretty properly lit and exposed, so there isn't going to be much that I need to do here. But if I drag this black slider down, this is going to take the overall black values of the image and make them darker. As you see them getting to 0, that is essentially clipping into a pure black value. So in this instance, I don't need to do a whole lot here, but that is just an explanation as to what's happening. You can see what happens if I drag that value up, and you can see what happens if I drag that value down. So what I like to do is I like to peak the values at pure black and then just pull it up a hair. In this case, again, I don't need to do much. We're gonna do the same thing with the whites. Go up until it goes all the way till you're clipping in the whites, and you can see in the monitor behind me specifically, these are the pure white values, and this is now, when it's peaking, considered a pure white. So I'm gonna do the same thing and drag it back a little bit. End up at about 20. The next thing that I'm going to do is work with the shadows and the highlights. This essentially will tell you within the black values, do I want them to be a little bit brighter or a little bit darker? I like to typically drop the shadows a little bit. I think it gives a better contrast than just playing with the contrast slider. So I'm going to just lower the shadow values a little bit and raise the highlights quite a bit in this case. I think it gives a really good separation with my face from the background, and toggling that, you can see exactly what I mean. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that this monitor, for example, is the whitest point of the image. So you obviously want to think about exposing to the subject, which in this case is me talking. So I can bring this exposure up a little bit higher because technically, even at white 100 value, I'm not clipping my skin tones. Now, granted, it's definitely overexposed in this case, and you would have to do a lot more adjustment to make it look better, but you have to consider what the subject is. And when you're framing and filming your videos, make sure that you're not going to be clipping anything that's gonna be something that you're gonna have to fix in post. In this case, I'm okay with the exposure of my face with the white value as it was. And as you can see, the difference between 100 and where I had it set at 20. The cool part about this is that now you get to flavor to taste. I like to start with the whites and the blacks values just to get a general exposure, and then I like to work with the shadows and really fine tune the exposure of the image. I think this looks pretty good. If I'm going to just show you guys a quick before and after, this is exactly what the before and after looks like side by side. I think it gives a really good contrast to the image, and I think that it's a great start to begin to throw some color into this video. Obviously, there's a lot more to be said about color grading and making sure that you get the right colors and all of that. But today I just want to go through exposure and how to make sure that you nail exposure in post-production. If you want to hear more about color grading from me, leave a comment down below as to what you want me to discuss in the future. But until next time, I hope this helps, and I'll see you on the internet.